Heseltine has been accused of sabotage by a leading Conservative think tank after he suggested a Labour government would be less damaging to the UK than Brexit. Well, let's get more on that story now. Joining me now from Ware in Herefordshire is the chairman of the Conservative think tank, the Bow Group, Councillor Ben Harris-Quinney. A very good evening to you. Thanks for joining us. So, explain to us what Lord Heseltine has said that's caused you concern.
Well, what Lord Heseltine has said, if you listen to the full audio or read the full transcript, is that he wants to stop Brexit at all costs, and the best way to do that is to vote in a Labour government. He was on Sky News a few hours ago saying exactly the same thing. So it's not that he's just said that is the way to stop Brexit. He said that he wants that to happen. And of course, as a Conservative peer, you cannot have a situation where someone is receiving the Conservative whip in the House of Lords, part of the Conservative group, receiving all the briefings, but actually advocating to vote a separate party into power.
Well, he might put it slightly differently. He might have suggested that a Labour government might be preferable to what he calls the long-term disaster of Brexit. But I get your point. So explain to us again exactly what you want to see happen to him. You want the whip withdrawn, do you?
Well, I think it has to be withdrawn because the problem is the Conservative Party has to operate with a degree of discipline. They've doled out such discipline to many other people in the past for far, far less serious offences. And I think when you've got a situation where there is a realistic prospect of Jeremy Corbyn leading the Labour Party to an election victory, or at least to forming a government, and you've got a Conservative peer saying that is the best course of action, because let's be clear, that is what he was saying. He wasn't just saying maybe or if. He was saying, I want to stop Brexit. The way to do that is to elect a Labour government. You can't have a situation where a member of the Conservative Party in the House of Lords that is voting on Conservative legislation is taking that position. It's completely untenable, and it's untenable not just for Lord Heseltine but also for the Conservative Party, because if they allow Lord Heseltine to continue after doing such things, it makes it impossible for them to hand down discipline onto anyone else.
And you've accused him of sabotage, haven't you? But isn't it true that ahead of the 2015 election, you were urging Tory voters in some areas to lend their votes to UKIP to prevent a Labour government? You were urging voters away from your party. Is that sabotage as well, then?
Well, no, that's not actually true. I know that Andrew Neil engaged in a bit of fake news with Lord Heseltine and a few Remain supporters then. But actually, what I was saying is in the seats where the Conservative Party cannot win, no chance of Conservative victory, then people there should vote UKIP. But in the other seats, which is the vast majority of seats, over 300 seats, that UKIP supporters should vote Conservative. And actually, the Conservative Party silently adopted that strategy in the 2017 general election when they asked a lot of UKIP candidates to stand down in favour of Brexiteer Conservative candidates. So that wasn't an act of sabotage. That was a way to increase the Conservative majority. And of course, there was no chance that in the very few seats where the Conservatives didn't stand a chance of winning, but UKIP did, that UKIP were going to form a government. What we have with Jeremy Corbyn is a realistic chance that he could form a government, and Michael Heseltine saying that's exactly what he wants to happen. He wants Jeremy Corbyn to form that government, and he wants Jeremy Corbyn to then stop Brexit, subverting the will of the British people, not just the Conservative Party.
But just on that point, you would accept, though, that you did urge some Conservative voters to vote for another party?
Yes, but I urged more UKIP voters to vote for the Conservative Party. And as I say, the Conservative Party adopted that strategy. Jacob Rees-Mogg supported it vocally. They adopted it silently in the 2017 general election. I would argue if they'd adopted it vocally, they would have won a majority. But again, there was no chance of, 2 or 3 UKIP seats forming a UKIP government. What Michael Heseltine is saying is, we want a Labour government in power. I never said we wanted a UKIP government in power. There was no chance of that. I said I wanted a Conservative government in power, but in those few seats where it was going to be between UKIP and Labour, then I wanted people to vote UKIP, because UKIP would be more in line with the Conservative Party than Labour would be. So what I was trying to do was maximise the Conservative majority in Parliament, and what Michael Heseltine is trying to do is minimise it.
Lord Heseltine is a big figure, as you know, in the Conservative Party, former Deputy Prime Minister, Defence Secretary, President of the Board of Trade as well. In the meantime, Theresa May has lost several prominent members of her own cabinet. Does she need another battle with a prominent Conservative figure? Would that really be helpful to the party and to Brexit negotiations?
Well, you're right about those credentials of Michael Heseltine 30 years ago. My belief is that Michael Heseltine now has no real support in the country. It's very hard to see who Michael Heseltine supporters would be, because although he's advocating people to vote a Labour government in, they wouldn't dream of supporting Michael Heseltine. Indeed, they remember things like Hillsborough and some of the worst things that they see as happening under the Conservative years of power, and would never support Michael Heseltine. And on the right, I think the vast majority of the grassroots of the Conservative Party would not support him. The only place I can imagine him finding support is with the Liberal Democrats, but they're probably quite disappointed that he didn't invite people to vote for them rather than Labour, because actually it's only the Liberal Democrats that are saying that we want a second referendum, we want to stop Brexit. The most bizarre thing about all this is it's not actually Labour Party policy at all to stop Brexit. So all Michael Heseltine would achieve, if his wishes are brought to the fore, is a Jeremy Corbyn government that still pursues Brexit. And Jeremy Corbyn has been a Brexit supporter for many more years than many more years than most people.
Although, okay, he did back the Remain campaign, yeah. Sorry to interrupt there. Just another question I just wanted to ask you, though, because there are still, though, despite what you're saying, a number of Tory voters who did back Remain, are there not? And we also know that a number of people in 2015 who had previously voted Conservative moved to Labour, and some of those will have been because of the issue of Brexit. You need to keep some of those people on board, don't you?
Yes, but I don't. I mean, if you look at the biggest Brexit supporting areas, these were Labour voters, but these were Labour voters who, some of the things that Labour were saying appealed to them, but they wanted Brexit. And I think that's why the Labour Party has come round to the position of saying, yes, we've got to deliver on the will of the British people, because many of these people voting were in our constituencies. But there's a very important point I want to make. I'm not saying, and no one in the Bow Group is saying, that there shouldn't be debate on the issue of Brexit. And I think there are a lot of very good Conservative MPs that are scrutinising the government on Brexit, like Dominic Grieve, Nicky Morgan. Obviously, their position is that they would want us to remain in the European Union. They've accepted now that that's not going to be the case. But they would never advocate that a Jeremy Corbyn government could come in. So that's the difference with Michael Heseltine. It's not just that he's a Remain supporter. There are many Remain supporters that I consider very close friends, many Remain supporters in the Bow Group, but none that are supporting a Jeremy Corbyn government in order to prevent Brexit. OK, Ben Harris-Quinney, we appreciate your time this evening. Thanks very much indeed for talking to us. My pleasure. Thank you.